So after pulling her back inside, Ren, through tearful eyes, says, "He doesn't want our things. He wants us." Thank you for joining me for yet another episode of the Everyman Movie Review. Happy All Saints Day, or Dia de los Muertos, depending on how you celebrate. I hope that you had a fantastic Halloween in whatever form you were able to celebrate, given all of the circumstances this year. Last Sunday, we talked about Dr. Sleep, which is a Stephen King novel come to life, so obviously that was a little bit scary. Our Thursday episode was a comedy, in the spirit of Halloween, but I wanted to go back and give you one more horror movie before we get out of this time of the year. So this week we are going to be talking about Slenderman, the movie from 2018. So if you don't know the story of Slenderman, it's showed up on Creepypasta, I don't know, 2014, 2013, 2015, somewhere around there. But it is a story of a figure who transfixes children and then draws them into the woods and kills them, I guess, or kidnaps them. I'm not really sure, but the kids never return home. And it started out as I said, just a story on this forum called Creepypasta, and then kind of took on a life of its own. And in fact, if you Google search Slenderman, you can find some really well done digital pictures, putting Slenderman into some pictures with children in the background with really stories that will scare your socks off underneath them. So I encourage you to do that, but that doesn't have a lot to do with the movie. It kind of does involve the build up to the movie, I guess. But before we get into all of that, let's get through the pleasantry, shall we? Slenderman was directed by Sylvain White. It was written by David Burke and based on a character by Victor Surge, which, if I remember, is the original author of Slenderman from Creepypasta. It is starring Joey King as Ren, Julia Goldani Tales as Hallie, Jaz Sinclair as Chloe, Annalise Basso as Katie, Alex Fitzalan as Tom, Taylor Richardson as Lizzie, and Javier Botet as Slenderman. So I do want to kind of start off here saying that this is not a movie about the Slenderman murders, where two girls, I think in Wisconsin, actually tried to sacrifice their third friend to Slenderman, or to try to get him to come out. And that was obviously tragic that it happened, and maybe it was in bad form to do a movie about that. My understanding is that actually the production company was concerned about how the movie would be accepted. And that leads me to the next point, which is I remember seeing the trailers for Slenderman and seeing, like, I don't know, a couple of things that happened in the trailer that didn't happen in the actual movie, and that the final scene of the movie was actually in the trailer. So it's one of those things, I'm not going to feel bad about giving spoilers. So there's not going to be a spoiler section today. So if you really want to see 2018 Slenderman, you should probably just stop now and go watch it. Or if you don't care about spoilers because it's the Slenderman movie from 2018, then just continue on. And what I'll also say from the beginning is that I think the five or 16 actors from this movie did a fantastic job. What I don't think was fantastic was the script necessarily. And when I go through a synopsis here, it's not going to make a lot of sense, and you'll see why I had problems with the script. So as the movie opens, we are with four friends, high school girls who hang out together all the time. I guess I don't know what high school girls do anymore. And they are talking to some boys, and Ren, who is like the leader of their team, is talking to a boy who says, "What are you guys doing tonight?" And she says, "I can't tell you, it's top secret." And then cut to later that evening, they are at one of their friends' house, and their friend's dad is a bit of a drunk, and he's passed out on the couch, and they are in the basement talking about Slenderman. And they're doing some internet research, and I guess in this universe, Slenderman exists as internet lore, and they have found some of that stuff, and now they are going to try and summon Slenderman. So they follow the directions of the video, they do what they're supposed to do, and no Slenderman. Sometime later, they are on a school trip to a graveyard for reasons, and one of the friends wanders off into the woods and then disappears. Now, the other three friends are in it now. They want to find out what happened to her, and at first they start thinking it's just there's a kidnapper out there or a serial killer, and they want justice for their friend. But they go to their friend's house, to her room, and they start digging around in her things to try to figure out where she might be. Did she run off? Did she get kidnapped? Did she meet someone? And what they find is she has been really diving into the research about Slenderman, and she is really deep in it. She has been contacting people on forums who said that they have seen him or that they've been in contact with him, and so she has basically been going above and beyond what the other girls had done, and now they are convinced that Slenderman took their friend. And each of them starts to experience some very weird things. They have visualizations, hallucinations of Slenderman. And there is this super awkward hookup scene between Ren and the guy that she was interested with at the beginning. And like when she's with him, she's picturing Slenderman, which is odd to say the least. But one by one, the other friends start to be impacted by their experience. They all go out in the woods. So one of the forums tells them that Slenderman will, in exchange for them, take the thing that they hold most dear. So they go out in the woods and they make a sacrifice of the thing that they hold most dear. And at one point, one of the other friends, Chloe, I think, gets separated from them. They do a thing where like two of them have on bandanas around their eyes and they say, don't run, don't ever take off the bandana. For what reasons, I'm not sure. But Chloe ends up getting separated from them and she comes in contact with Slenderman, who we actually see. And of course, this means, other than the lore and stuff that we've experienced, that we now know Slenderman is real. And maybe that the other friend, Hallie, I think, is the one that may have actually been kidnapped by Slenderman. And Chloe is not herself. She is a shell of her former self. And as she starts to degrade, the other friends start to degrade too. They start falling apart from each other and kind of turning on each other, and their lives are just in complete turmoil. So one of the girls is in her room and she sees Slenderman, who's there in the room with her, and he jumps on her and he's choking her, but then she sees herself in the mirror and she's the one choking herself. Another one is at the library doing research on Slenderman because reasons, and she sees Slenderman in like the shadows and tries to escape him, and he touches her and her face disappears, and now she's like wandering around with no face, but then she like stumbles into a library employee and all of a sudden like face is back. And so Ren has been in contact with someone named Alley Cat, who is a survivor of Slenderman, and then one of the other friends finds that this girl, Allison something, Alley Cat, had actually killed herself because she believed she had come in contact with Slenderman, so obviously it couldn't be her. And they race over to Ren's house and they find her like standing in the window about to jump out, but Fred pulls her back in and saves her. And so like there's this kind of question about like, is Slenderman even real? Like they think that they saw him, but is this just a shared delusion, or they are all suffering about some kind of mental breakdown or some mental disorder? So after pulling her back inside, Ren, through tearful eyes, says, he doesn't want our things. He wants us. And then a tentacle comes through the window and grabs her and yanks her out the window. And Slenderman has tentacles for reason. So Hallie, the last friend standing, runs out in the woods and basically wants to have a face-off with Slenderman and says, take me as long as Lizzie can live, for reasons. Again, I'm not really sure what the trade-off there is. But when Slenderman seems to accept that deal by sending his tentacles towards her, she turns and runs. And she's like running while he's moving through the woods with the tentacles. And she runs into a tree or hides in a tree or something happens with the tree, but it ends up like starting to envelop her and she becomes part of the tree and then blackout. And if you're thinking to yourself, what the heck are you talking about, Rob? It feels the same way watching it. You're just like, what is going on? This is not like I'm scared. It's like I'm confused, and it is confusing. Anyway, she wakes up in the hospital and it turns out the tree thing was made up in her imagination, maybe, or hallucination, but her friends are gone, and so is her sister, and there is no explanation about how that happened. And then the movie ends. It just ends. That's it. And I was like, that was a movie. It had a beginning and an ending, and there was some stuff that happened in between, but not a particularly good one. Now, that being said, the acting job done by the friends, like all the teen actors, was amazing. They did an amazing job with the script that they had, which was not fantastic, clearly. And I say that, but as I said in the beginning, I have some thoughts that maybe the movie that they made was not the movie that went out and not the movie that I watched on streaming, because production companies are worried about big losses and they're worried about controversy, and maybe having Slenderman be real, actually real, and killing kids would not have played well when obviously two teenagers sacrificed their friend and killed her for Slenderman. So maybe they backed off from it and they changed it, and that's why it seemed to make no sense, because they cut out important stuff to the story. But all that being said, between the moments of confusion, the movie was actually pretty scary in that thriller way of like the feeling like something is gonna happen, and something happens. And not jump scares, sometimes there were jump scares. When you have a flashlight panning across and then it pans across Slenderman and you see it, but they don't, and then you're like, oh my God, he was right there. Yeah, you get that, right? But then like there's just like them running through the woods and like it's night, it's 3 a.m. and you're running through the woods. I'd be terrified, and you feel that feeling of them being so scared. So I chalk that up though to the acting job, not to the script. The actors did a fantastic job of making this movie pretty scary. And not if you think about the whole thing conceptually or if you try to explain it to other people, obviously. But while you're watching it, you are in it with them. And it's got those thriller aspects. It's got those horror, scary moments. And I came out, it's one of those things that when it ends, you're just like laughing at yourself for being scared, but not in the same way that you do at Hubie, like the Adam Sandler Halloween movie. Like, that thing just made no sense. It only really makes sense while you're in the middle of it. And you're like, sure, I'll accept this fact that her face was gone and all of a sudden it's not gone and the girl's going to jump out the window and she gets saved and then gets sucked out by tentacles and that's something that happens. Like, you're in it with them and you're like, oh, anything's possible. But then at the end, you kind of like snap out of it. It's like being brainwashed. For those 2 hours or 90 minutes, you're brainwashed and you're in it with them and you're scared with them. And I think that's good. And if you're looking for a movie that'll scare you, at least while you're watching it, this is a good one for that. It was shot really well. It was acted really well. That's what makes you scared. But this is also the kind of movie that you don't want to get on the internet and tell everybody that you watched. You probably aren't going to talk to your friends about Slenderman. It's old, but it's also not a good movie. And it definitely was not winning any awards for anything. So I think that leaves me in the position of saying, no one must go watch this movie. And maybe by the same token, everyone should go watch this movie. Meaning, if you got 90 extra minutes and you're looking for a scare, this is a good one. If you're looking to feel good about the 90 minutes you spent watching something, this is not it. But for those people who just like that feeling of being scared and like the scariness of it, man, you wait till 9, 10 o'clock at night, turn off the lights, the big bright TV lighting you and Slenderman jumping out during a panning flashlight shot, it'll get you there. Slenderman, the character, is relatively scary. I think there's something just about him that brings out something inside humans. There's a story about why are humans scared of snakes? We have no reason to really be scared of snakes. Unless we can go all the way back to our like rat ancestors, like way back, way earlier than humans, way earlier than mammals, everything. Where some reptilian that was like a snake was hunting something that was like a mammal that became humans. There is no connection. We've always been much bigger than snakes. And yes, they can bite you and they can kill you with venom, but that's not really how that fear develops. We are afraid of things because they could hurt us, generally speaking. You can run faster than a snake. You can get away. They get you by surprising you. It's one of those things that you should like tread carefully, not always be scared of. And then I read a thing, I'll try to find a link and put it in the show notes, about that there may have been something that was snake-like that scared early humans so much that it implanted in our DNA. And now that thing's not here. Maybe it's not here. But we're scared of snakes because they remind us of that. And I think that same thing is why Slenderman is scary. His dimensions are off. He's got really long arms, really long legs. He's very tall, but he wears a suit. No face. The no face thing is also just very freaky. Like, there's something about not being able to see somebody and not be able to read their emotions that is frightening, I think. But overall, it's a scary movie during a time of the year that we like scary movies. And you don't usually come out of those movies thinking like, oh, that was fantastically well spent. I think it's the kind of movie that we would have walked out of the theater saying like, I was scared the whole time. And as soon as I walked out, I'm immediately over it. And maybe that's the best kind of scary movie because you don't take that with you. I haven't had nightmares about Slender Man because the movie didn't make enough sense to make me have nightmares. The number 23 is a really good movie that will get in your brain and just drill down in here and then pull out. And you're like, oh, I'm fine. And then right before you go to sleep, boom, it's there and that's all you can think about and now you can't sleep. Slenderman's not that movie. But I think it is enjoyable enough that you can watch it and be scared and only slightly regret the time that you spent doing it, which might be perfect for this time of year. But I also hope that you don't feel that way about the reviews that you watch, that you feel bad about the time that you watch doing it. But if you do, I'm sorry. If you don't, well, I got a whole lot of content on this channel I think you'd enjoy. Not only the year's worth of Everyman movie review episodes, but a ton of other content too. And if we do episodes twice a week, but if twice a week isn't as often as you need something new, I do a daily podcast called Rob Explains. It's just random, cool, and interesting things. I'm about to get into a series of mythical creatures. And we just talked about Halloween and Mischief Night and Dia de los Muertos and All Saints Day. So those explainers about where those things come from are available now. But I will be back on Thursday with a brand new episode, not about Halloween, about something completely off, something completely different. And I hope that you will join me then. But until then, please take care of yourselves and each other. Have a great week, everybody.